business channels and magazines to know about business leaders. Little did we imagine that we would one day be spending a Saturday evening with one amazing leader and receive his wisdom on a critical topic like insurance resilience in a rapidly changing coronavirus world. Our sincere gratitude to the eminent guest of today, Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta, who is the Managing Director and CEO at ICICI Lombard. He's a name to reckon with for his critical leadership positions in diverse business areas in the ICICI Group. And we are very grateful that he agreed to deliver this special talk under the Leadership Talks 2020 series on reimagining insurance industry post COVID-19. I'm very happy to welcome some of the friends of our BIMTech Insurance fraternity who have always supported us in our vision. I'm very delighted to welcome Mr. B.D. Banerjee, who's Independent Director, Royal Sundaram General Insurance Company, Chennai, and he was formerly Chairman cum Managing Director, the Oriental Insurance Company Limited, as well as Insurance Ombudsman in Mumbai. He's also joined by Mr. Arun Agarwal, who is currently on the board of Kotak Mahindra General Insurance as an independent director. And one of his latest monographs on insurance governance for world's largest democracy, where BIMTech was also a knowledge partner, it lays down a complete insurance governance framework, and it has been received very well by the insurance regulator as well as the concerned ministries in India. He's been the CEO and MD of Cholamandalam, and he's had so many wonderful roles in his corporate life. We also have with us Mr. Kaushal K. Mishra, who is former CEO and Managing Director of Tata AIG General Insurance Company Limited. It's also an honor to have with us one of our members of the Board of Governors of BIMTech, Mr. Rakesh Ketan. He leads the Ketan Legal Associate, and he's an alumnus of London Business School and also a member of Bar Council of India. And we always are drawn by his vision every now and then. Thank you. At the outset, I would like to invite our director, Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi. He has been leading the institute in a very futuristic way. And 2 decades back, when he decided that BIMTech should launch a PGPM program in insurance, I'm sure that it was really good for our institute, and today we are being led by so many CEOs and leaders of that industry. Our students gain, faculty gain, and on behalf of all the chairpersons, deans, students, and faculty members, I extend my warm welcome to all of you and hand over the session to our director for his welcome address.
Thank you, Professor Saloni Sinha. Our esteemed chief guest who is going to address our students, faculty, research scholars, Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta. Our other guest, Mr. B.D. Banerjee, Mr. Arun Agarwal, Mr. K.K. Mishra, our board member, Mr. Rakesh Ketan, my senior colleague, Dr. Anupam Verma, Professor K.K. Sinha, Professor K.C. Arora, my colleagues from the insurance program, Dr. Abhijit Chaturaj, Professor Manoj Pandey, Professor Prateek Priyadarshi, Professor K.K. Krishnan, and also our young colleague, Monica Mittal. So it's a great occasion for us to offer to our students, not only of insurance programs, but from other programs also, this leadership talks series for the current year. Already we could have another stalwart from the industry, Dr. Ajit Ranade, few months back. He is Group Executive President and Chief Economist with Aditya Birla Group, a renowned economist of the country. So for the last couple of years, we have been inviting uh, senior leaders from the industry and also from the public life of the country. And the purpose is that the students should learn not only from books or from classroom interaction with their faculty, they should also learn from the lives and achievements of the corporate leaders, social leaders. And we are thankful to Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta for sparing time today on this weekend. I have picked up some of the very important learning for our students from his profile, that he started his career with ICICI Group in 1992, completed more than 28 years. He is the CEO for ICICI Lombard General Insurance Company Limited for last 1 decade. He has been involved with various businesses of ICICI Group, but particularly I would like to mention the international banking group of ICICI Bank. He built its presence in 15 countries within 4 years. And there is a case on this big achievement at Harvard Business School. It is being taught in various business schools of the world. So I think insurance industry is very important for India's future destiny. It is important for the global economy, particularly after COVID-19, a pandemic which has never felt and seen for last 100 years. There is a lot of talk about how to manage future risk arising out of disasters, pandemics, and also many other types of risk associated with human lives. I would like to just submit that in our vision, it has been mentioned that we are developing ethical leaders with entrepreneurial and global mindset, striving for sustainability and inclusive growth. So it is a vision we are trying to practice in our life, and in our practice, we are teaching to our students that they should also try, they should also strive to become ethical leaders with entrepreneurial and global mindset. They should strive for sustainability and inclusive growth in their future life. It is true that in the very beginning, they will not get leadership opportunities, but definitely some of them, a few of them may become leaders like Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta, and they will have to learn how Mr. Dasgupta rose to this high position while working tirelessly, following the vision of the company where he has been working for last so many years. So over to Saloni, and I welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta, and I also welcome our other esteemed guests whose names I have mentioned. This is a big occasion, and definitely it will be recorded in our newsletter as well as other publications. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And you rightly said, in the vision, we talk about developing global thought leaders and ethical leaders. And what a wonderful testimonial we have today with us, sir. When the course had started, you must have thought about nurturing such leaders. And you just mentioned that, one day we will soon have our own CEOs. At least, we have these success stories, and one such testimonial has joined us today. I feel very delighted and very proud to welcome Vidisha, and I'm calling her by her first name because she is a student of PGDM Insurance, and from the 2010-12 batch. She was a gold medalist, so that's a testimonial of the kind of course we are running here. And that's the story, walk the talk. Today she's joined us because She is going to tell us how she has gained and how she has reached the position of Associate Vice President in Reinsurance in ICICI Lombard under the leadership of Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta. So I thought that the right opportunity for Vidisha to actually introduce our eminent speaker of the day in the Leadership Talk Series 2020. Welcome, Vidisha. Thank you so much for joining. Please let us know your journey with Mr. Dasgupta and handing it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Ms. Saloni. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Indeed, it is a great pleasure for me and a big honor for me to introduce my CEO, Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta, at the institute where I have spent 2 great years. Bhargav holds PGDBA from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, and a BE Mechanical degree from Jadavpur University. Bhargav is a career ICICI man, having begun his stint at the erstwhile ICICI Limited in 1992. Within the group, he has held many critical leadership positions, including project finance, corporate banking and treasury, e-commerce, strategy, international banking and life insurance. He was COO, ICICI Econet Limited, where he was responsible for private equity investments in the internet, communication and technology sectors, incubation of new internet-related business, and e-initiatives of various business units of ICICI Group. As also mentioned by Chaturvedi sir, he has set up the international banking group of ICICI Bank and built its presence in 15 countries within 4 years, which is a case study at Harvard Business School. Prior to his current role at ICICI Lombard, he was the executive director of ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. In 2009, Bhargav joined ICICI Lombard as MD and CEO. With him at the helm, the company has moved from strength to strength and has consolidated its market share in its preferred segment and became the first non-life insurance company to get listed on stock exchange. Bhargav has also consistently pushed for using technology to provide innovative solutions, which has resulted in the company introducing many firsts in the industry, such as virtual inspection in motor, bots which issue quotations for corporate customers, and use of natural language processing to reduce health claim approval time. In past 5 years that I have worked with the organization, I have experienced firsthand how these solutions not only help solve customer problems, but also make day-to-day lives easier for us as employees. His another great contribution has been building a culture where employees are empowered to take decisions. It is a testament to his leadership that when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country and the economy earlier this year, the company was not only able to move seamlessly to working from home, but also able to come up with new solutions for customers, both corporate and individuals. He is currently the chairman, FICCI's Insurance and Pension Committee, and is the director on board of BFSI Sector Skill Council of India. He is also a member of various IADI appointed committees like Health Insurance Forum, Insurance Advisory Committee, etc. For a man who does so much, he also somehow manages the time to read and keep himself updated on the developments across the world. Indeed, his bookshelf, which we can see on many calls and even currently we can see, is an object of envy amongst many of us. He is also an avid runner, having taken part in many international marathons. I request Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta for his insights on reimagining insurance industry post-COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Bimtek. Thank you, Professor Sinha and Professor Chaturvedi for giving me this opportunity. Honestly, it's a very, very pleasant surprise to see that Vidisha is also here. You know, she's an outstanding young leader in the organization. You know, we work reasonably closely because she's in reinsurance, and you know, given the criticality of the function, there is a lot of time that we spend together. I can look at her and see the quality of students that you have in BIMTech. And I didn't expect to see her here. So it's a great pleasure to see you, Vidisha.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Indeed, it is my pleasure to be associated with the company and the college and being able to relate both of them.
Thank you, Vidisha. So I won't waste too much time talking about anything else. But what I'll do is I'll kind of give a overview of how we think things are going to shape up. And the whole idea was to give an overview and then probably have a more interactive session. That's what I discussed with Professor Chaturaj, and I thought that would be more helpful for all of you. And honestly speaking, in this panel today, in this forum today, we have some leaders that I have looked up to in the insurance space, some outstanding thought leaders in the industry, and some people that I've worked closely with. So it will be an absolute honor to share some of our insights. And would love to others also join in if they feel that they have something to add to what I'm saying. So let's just move to what we wanted to cover today, the impact of COVID on insurance. COVID has really affected all of us. Who would have imagined that we would be sitting in our respective homes, talking to each other on a platform that we had never imagined possible even 3 years back. And it's something that has become routine for us. But honestly, this pandemic is first and foremost a human tragedy. And it's something that has deeply affected humanity, and the economy at large. And the stakes for individuals, businesses, workers, the economy overall is really, really extreme. Where will this head? I mean, honestly speaking, no one knows how the course of this pandemic will, run through over the next, 6 months, over 18 months, will depend greatly on the vaccine that all of us are eagerly awaiting the arrival of. But let's be real. Even if we get a vaccine, we will take a lot of time to actually, administer it to all the countrymen across the country. That itself will take months, if not years. So in effect, we have to mentally be prepared to live with this pandemic for at least the foreseeable future. The impact, as I said, on this of this pandemic is not just on health and all of our lives. I think the biggest impact has been also on the economy. And one of the things that we debated a lot in the beginning of this pandemic, when everything got shut down, is would this recovery, whenever things recover, would it be V-shaped, or which means a sharp recovery? Will it be a U-shaped recovery with a little bit of time and then it'll pick up? Or will it be an L-shaped recovery? It'll be flat for a long time and then it'll pick up. I think increasingly what most people are beginning to realize is that it looks like a K-shaped recovery. What I mean by a K-shaped recovery is that there are some parts of the economy which is recovering faster. Maybe the organized sector of the economy. Maybe some of the better, well-managed companies are gaining market share at this point in time. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people who probably suffering a lot. In certain sectors of economy, of course, certain services sectors, travel, tourism, to give an example, but also a certain part of our countrymen. I mean, particularly the urban poor. So it's a K-shaped recovery. We are recovering fast, some part of it, and some part of it not. And we have to think about the impact of this pandemic and the economic impact in terms of how much this impact will be over a period to decide how much it will shape, where the industry is going to go. And one of the views that in the beginning a lot of people had was that it will be a temporary impact. I mean, yes, we will have some lockdown for some time. Sometime later we'll open up, people will come back to work, and the world will begin to look like it was sometime later. And the view was that typically, human beings kind of get used to some of these changes and move on in life. So the change will be temporary, and in the long term, the change may not be very, very impactful. Our belief right from beginning was that it would not be so. I think this is a transformational event at a civilizational level. What I mean by that is that if you look at some world events in the recent past, let's say 9/11, something that affected our industry a lot, had a huge impact on the travel industry, travel and tourism industry, in terms of the way the industry was organized from a safety perspective, from terrorism perspective, and it changed the way we took flights, and we got used to it. But 9/11 was a sharp, localized event at a point in time. The current pandemic is something that is impacting many more people over a long period of time and at a deeply personal level. I think across the world, everyone has got impact. Now, all psychologists will tell you that impacts of events of these nature leave a very marked impact on human beings. And our belief is this will be one such, which means this will actually change potentially geopolitics. It will potentially change the world order. It definitely will change economics. It will change the way we conduct ourselves. So there will be societal change. There is clearly going to be technological change. And in that context, we have to think about what it does to insurance. Now, in terms of looking at our industry is clearly bang in the center of this pandemic because we are a risk industry. And when we think about how this is going to change our lives in the future, first thing that we have to think about is how does it affect our consumers? Because at the end of the day, we are in businesses of providing risk solutions to our customers, and how they change because of this event will determine how we have to adapt as an industry. And I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that this event will have a big impact in terms of awareness and increased need for personal insurance. This is not something that any one of us wished on anyone else, but fact remains that because of this event, there is a greater awareness of the need for protection, particularly for life insurance and health insurance. And there's been a lot of surveys done by reinsurance companies. Swiss Re has done something, RG has done something across Asia. All research and all surveys throw out the same feedback, that there is a lot of increase in personal insurance demand in the minds of consumers. So that's one change that we think will happen. The second change that we are experiencing as we speak is changed expectation from customers in how they consume services. Clearly, there are two types of customers, if I just keep it simple. One who are not as risk averse and who are willing to go out and step out and go into crowded areas, don't worry about the risk. And there's a large part of customers who are still worried about contracting the disease. And at least that segment of customer is expecting contactless service when it comes to claims or policy processing. Across board, most customers are also expecting that you as an insurance company, become a second source of trusted advice. It's not good enough to solve for a claim when it happens, but advise me on my wellness, on my prevention, advise me on where I should go to when it comes to taking a treatment, and be more of a trusted partner beyond just paying claims. So that is, to me, two big changes that we are seeing. People are expecting contactless digitized services, and people are looking forward to someone, it could be insurance, it could be someone else, to provide them advice that they can trust when it comes to healthcare and personal protection. And of course, as an organization, as an insurance industry, we have to see how we can provide that support. The third thing that we are seeing coming from customers is, as the new risks are coming through, there is clearly a demand for new product constructs. I talked about health in terms of in health specifically. As an industry, we had traditionally been providing only IPD solutions. That is, if you go to a hospital, stay there for 24 hours, we pay for the claims. That's not what customers are only concerned about when they look at their healthcare. What customers are looking at is, can we provide a comprehensive healthcare solution to their needs? And can we also provide them solution which reduces the risk of further infection when they go to a hospital? So, for example, can we think of providing outpatient cover, where you go to a doctor not in a hospital, but your family doctor, get treated for something that doesn't need hospitalization, pay for the pharmacy bills, pay for the diagnostic, the test labs, lab tests, etc., and potentially do that on a seamless, paperless, cashless process so that it's convenient for me. They're also saying that, I would love to take teleconsulting. Why do I have to go to visit a hospital at this point in time? Because I don't want to take a risk of going to a hospital. So can you provide me teleconsulting? Can you provide home-based care? For small ailments, small diseases, you don't really need to go to a hospital. And in fact, if you provide me care in my home, the risk of infection comes down, and I'm more at comfort. Similarly, this is based on one research that we've done. About 28% of Indian respondents are asking for some of these incremental features to their policy. And honestly, again, they're looking for more digitized, more personalized cover based on specifically customized solution driven by wellness platforms that they're willing to join in. So one of the things that we are seeing is people are willing to share their personal data with you if you are able to provide, use that data to provide them better products and better services. So when it comes to customized health insurance, using the data that they're willing to share when they're coming on your platform for wellness solutions, if you can give them some benefits, they're happy happy to provide that data. So that's one transformation that is possibly coming through in the health insurance space. Similarly, as more people are working from home, the demand for cyber is increasing. As organizations, we could manage perimeter security, as we call it. When everyone comes into our network within the organization, we create firewalls and boundaries, etc., and we manage it. Now, as everyone goes to their homes and works from their home, we have to think about how to manage the cyber risk. And this is something that is clearly, increasing day on day, and we have to provide solutions to protect, corporates and retail employees from cyber risk. And that's is emerging as a bigger opportunity. Similarly, for home, India, unfortunately, the home insurance penetration is very low. But as you're working from home with assets of the corporate, be it a laptop or be it some other devices that you have, which are corporate property, and you're working from home, again, the demand for home insurance is broadening beyond what traditionally was home insurance. Now there are possibilities of providing covers which take care of your personal assets as also corporate assets. That's another opportunity at a retail level. At a corporate level, I think all of you who are students of insurance have seen the kind of debate that has developed in the West in terms of business interruption covers. In India, that debate never happened because we never had any non-damage BI covers prevalent in India. That clearly is a need of the hour. Now, how we price it, how we underwrite the risk, etc., is something that we have to solve for. But clearly, there is a big opportunity for non-damage BI risk, particularly for SMEs in events like this. And one thing that is being talked about a lot is solving for the pandemic problem. And pandemic risk is a challenging risk to solve for insurers because the tail risk is very high. So the solution that people are talking about is pandemic pools, which limit the tail risk for commercial insurers with some kind of a public-private solution, at least in the initial period till the pool gets built up. And that will help, create more resilience and certainty for businesses if we can provide these solutions. So clearly there is a big change in terms of the customer demand on a need service and demand on and products that is coming through. And last trend that we are seeing is there is a bit of a flight to safety. So one of the things that we think will happen is some of the better and stronger companies will benefit for some time in terms of customer preference shifting to some of these companies. That's a trend that we are seeing across industry. So what is the imperative for insurers? What do we need to do to address this need of consumers? And another thing that I want to talk about when I'm talking about corporates is that, or insurance companies, is that this pandemic has told us or taught us that there is another way of working, which could potentially be positive in certain aspects and necessary in another, but it's an opportunity to look at for the future. So one of the things that is very clear to all of us is that all organizations have to become much more digitized, connected, and agile. I mean, we have to work together in a remote, a manner where people are sitting and working from homes, but remain as collaborative, as connected, as fast in terms of finding solutions to customer needs and as effective as if we were sitting together. That means there's a lot of transformation that organizations have had to go through, both in terms of internal processes, the technology that we put in, but also the way we work. And this is probably a change that is here for the long term. This is not just a temporary change in the lockdown period. You've probably read and seen that globally, a lot of technology companies are saying this is the way we will continue to work. Our view is that this is actually an opportunity to do many things. When you think about your employee base, you can give a more flexible way of working. You know, someone could decide to work 2 days at home and 3 days in office when things become normal. Someone could decide that I want to work from my hometown in, let's say Indore, though my, base office is in Mumbai. And if the organization allows me to do that, I would be happy. So there are these opportunities that are opening up, for which organizations need to reorient the way they go about doing their day-to-day operations. So that's one thing in terms of staying more connected, allowing more remote working, and yet becoming more agile to solve customer needs that are changing very, very rapidly. The second, imperative for insurance organizations and in fact any service organization is to implement digital at scale. I mean, there are enough WhatsApp jokes that have been going around saying that who drove your technology, your digital transformation, whether the CTO or the CEO or COVID. And honestly, the answer is probably all three for most companies. What COVID has done is scale this make this change come through much faster than what it would have otherwise. All organizations have realized that we need to become much more automated and digitized to be able to compete. Now, when you talk about digitization, it is not just about selling policies. It is also about how we as an organization do everything that we do as an organization, be it for policy sourcing, be it for normal policy servicing, be it for claim servicing, be it the way we operate as an entity within ourselves across with our agents and our employees. All of that needs to be digitized in some way or form. And this honestly is, not only an imperative for growth, it's possibly an imperative for survival. If you don't do this as an organization, you may not remain viable in the long term. So this is the second imperative for insurance companies, and as I said, for any company. Third is for our industry, this is an opportunity to modernize our digital distribution channels. What I mean by that is that there is a lot of debate that most policy sourcing will shift to online channels. We don't believe that. Some customers will definitely shift to digital channels, and as a percentage, digital channel sourcing may increase and would increase. But India is a country where we don't believe all the customer base will shift to digital channels. We believe that customers would still want to have interaction with their trusted agent, will need some broker to give them advice, will need to go to maybe a dealer to buy an insurance policy, will go to a bank to buy a policy. So you have to think of being a company which provides all means of accessing your products and services across various distribution channels. However, the distribution channel can be made much more digitized and become more of a hybrid channel where there is a lot of physical touch, but equally there is a lot of technology making the process very convenient, smooth, and low cost, for you. So this would mean completely, for example, from agency side, it could mean completely online recruitment, management, training, using videos, which we've been doing in these times. But this could be the way for the future. Similarly, using RPA tools, the robotic process automation tools, advanced analytics to help them sell more policies. Completely digital app-based selling platforms. So these are things that will become absolutely essential for companies. In the short term, forget medium and long term. Fourth thing that we are seeing is becoming even more possible is the point that I made, that a lot of customers are expecting insurance companies to become their trusted risk management partners. It's not just good enough to pay claims, but can you help me with my risk? So when it comes to individual customers, can you help me with wellness and other solutions so that I don't fall sick? Similarly, for corporates, can you analyze my claims data and tell me how I prevent a claim from happening? Can you look at my marine transit losses and tell me how I prevent a loss going ahead? And today there are a lot of technologies. This is not just to do with COVID. As a company, we've been doing this for almost 6-7 years now. But I think COVID will accelerate this change. With these technologies like IoT, telematics, or using drones, you can actually solve for this risk management solution for corporates much better than what you could have in the past. And last point that I'll make for corporates is, or insurance companies, is that I think this is a time where you have to become very, very cautious and careful because of the uncertainty in the market, and you have to be very sensible about how you manage your business. And one of the things that you have to do is really optimize your cost. Again, you bring in more efficiency in operations while you invest in training people. You're building up your employee base and making them more competent and building distribution. But all the unnecessary, flab in the system has to be tightly controlled because these are difficult times. So these 5 would be, in my mind, the imperatives for insurance company if they want to sustain and do well in the long term. But I'll end with one point that personally has been very close to my heart, and I think this has been a wake-up call. This event has been a wake-up call for corporate sector in general, not just insurance. I talked about the fact that we've had a K-shaped recovery, and I wanted to talk about that because I wanted to highlight the point that in this crisis there is still a large population of people who are still suffering, and I think one of the things that corporates across the world are beginning to realize is that for 50 years we've probably we've gone after and chased the false god. The view was that the only role and responsibility the corporates had was shareholder capitalism. Your only responsibility was to ensure that your shareholder made money. That's an important objective, but that's not the only objective. I think increasingly corporates, and at least the good corporates, are beginning to understand that you need to think about all possible stakeholders, be it your employees, be it your customers, be it your distributors, be it society in large. What are you doing as an organization which is helping society in a positive manner, rather than just focus on making money for your shareholders? As I said, making money for your shareholders is absolutely vital, because if you don't do that, you don't exist. But you have to do it in a manner that is positive for society in its entirety, and that's something that I think the events that has happened in the last few months, particularly let's say what happened in India, the migrant crisis, I think that realization has probably got further enhanced at this period. I hope that we as corporates don't forget this moment and remain true to stakeholder capitalism rather than shareholder capitalism. I personally am a big believer in capitalism rather than socialism. So I don't want to message something which means that we are talking about something else. But the way we organize ourselves has to be in a manner that keeps in mind society at large. And as an insurance company, we have a big role to play in that sense, where, as I said, we can do a lot more in terms of helping our customers in a meaningfully positive way. Again, using some of the technology tools that are becoming available to do that well. And that's something that, at least in ICICI Lombard, we keep trying to do. So that's what I want to cover, and as an overview, and then take questions from any of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very enriching, and I'm sure everyone has a lot to take from your session today. At this point of time, I hand over the session to the chairperson of insurance program, Dr. Abhijit Chaturat, who is himself a chartered insurer, as well as he's well known in the field of research and training and consultancies in this industry and academia. So welcome, Abhijit Chaturat, sir. I hand over the session to the QA, and let's invite, and many of these comments are already here.
Thank you so much, Professor Saloni, and welcome back, sir. I start with the lighter vein in the sense that, sir, you spent quality time in banking, then life insurance, and from 2009 in general insurance as the captain of the industry. Which role did you like the most? The one in bank, or one in life insurance, or in general insurance?
When I moved from the bank, initially I thought my first love will always remain banking. Having started my career in banking, and it's natural, right? Your first job is something that you hold very close to your heart. And honestly, there's a lot that I got from banking, and I found it very exciting, particularly my last stint in terms of setting up the international banking. But a few months into general insurance, particularly, I found this sector very, very exciting. And the fact that I've been happy to do this job for 11 years is probably a testimony to that fact. I think one of the things, and I keep saying this, and since we have your students here, one of the things that I realized coming in general insurance, and particularly as an engineer, is that this is a sector within financial services where you can really learn a lot, and you can leverage your technology, or engineering skills to some extent, more than any other part of financial services. And I'll give a couple of examples. This is a sector which is really a sector where you need to go deep into the underlying drivers of an industry. So let me give you a couple of examples. So if you're looking at auto insurance, you really need to understand an automobile much better than if you were doing auto financing. When you give a loan, you have to understand the credit. If you do insurance, you have to understand the risk, but also understand when you are handling claims, a complete perspective on the auto, including car parts, and how to repair them at that level. So if you are interested in knowledge at a sector level, this industry is fascinating. The other thing is that this industry can actually deploy technology to do a lot of things, which is very, very interesting. I talked about some of these RPA tools or IoT or telematics, etc. That's very unique to GI. So GI is an exciting space. I just love this industry.
Thank you so much. Whatever the loss to the banking industry was definitely a gain of general insurance industry. I hope we will continue to lead the industry in days to come. Coming back to serious question. Now, the next normal requires comprehensive and very ambitious response across 5 areas. One is, how do you resolve to come out from this crisis? Resilience, everybody is talking about. And then the most important, your talk was, you revolved about reimagination and reform. One of the issues that you also touched during this discussion was mitigating the risk for your employees. That was the biggest challenge that you faced. And then you had to also ensure operational continuity. How did you really, you said that now that one can work from Indore, if he wants to work from Indore, is the headquarters maybe in Mumbai or some other places. So how did you look at it and how did you come out of it? What was the result before you when the COVID befall on everybody in the industry?
Yeah, so I guess all of us, kind of were put in the deeper end of the pool, so we had to learn to swim, right? Thankfully, as a company, we had been investing in a lot of digital tools. Lot of our internal workflow systems are on the cloud. We had Microsoft Teams as a company which we were already using, in certain parts of the organization we're using. So we had the tools, but honestly speaking, all of us were not. I mean, all our meetings were physical, maybe some video conferencing. We never used Teams for our team meetings, for example. We had to get used to, at leadership level, all of us had to get used to that. But I think the first principle that we said was that employee safety is most primary at this point in time. That was very clear in our mind. And we kind of started preparing for some kind of a BCP, visiting, about 2 to 3 weeks before the lockdown happened. And that was, thankfully, we kind of a bit early in that. We were beginning to see what was happening in Europe and we were worrying about it. So we started preparing for it. So when we moved into lockdown, a lot of things had already been put in place. But what we're now seeing is that when we are thinking about this way of working going ahead, we see this as potentially, a positive opportunity in the sense that we can give a choice to employees, as I said. We've done certain things and we will continue to do some more things for our employees. So one of the things that we did was give data cards or broadband connectivity to specific people who didn't have some of those things. We're giving, let's say, laptops to everyone. We gave headsets to people who need headsets. We are now, this quarter, we will start giving out ergonomic chairs to employees, desks to employees, whoever wants it for their home. So basically giving them the basic tools that people would get to have at home. And we are yet now not kind of at least in the bigger cities, large offices where a lot of people normally come, we are not asking people to come to office. If they're productive from home, they're productive from home. And I think what I talked about in terms of the opportunity, these are opportunities that we think will evolve. I think geography is history. People can sit in, as I said, in Indore and work for a Bombay-based company and even a US-based company. So that's something that we should take advantage of as an organization.
What kind of IT preparedness was for, because the critical services were needed to be delivered through IT platform. Was the industry really ready for this kind of IT preparedness, or all of a sudden everybody was found in a tizzy and never knew how to come out of it?
So again, Professor Chaturvedi, I guess it's different across different companies. So as you know, 1st April is a big month for corporate business in India.
Absolutely.
And if you look at SMEs are also in a similar boat. So one of the things when we went into lockdown in March, we were worried about, a lot of people would worry about it. But what we had been doing even before this is preparing the organization for a digital approach in any case. It was not something that we got triggered because of this. So we had, for example, digital platforms through which you can source policies. And, even as I said, for corporate policies, we had digital processes. So you can, even before this COVID event, an agent in Raipur on Saturday evening would decide to issue a policy where no human being would underwrite the policy. It was a robotic process automation tool that we had anyway built, and using that tool for almost most of our products. Some products we couldn't, but most of our products was so we could do that. So in the month of April for SME policies, where it's not retail, simple, standardized policies, each are customized, difficult, complicated policies. 90% of our policies were issued digitally. Come to claim service, we had started a virtual inspection process, which is someone, customer or a garage can use their mobile phone and get a survey done where our surveyor doesn't need to travel to the location. They can do it from the comfort of their office. Now just move that office location to their home location. Everything else continues. So we had 100% of claims inspections in the first month, a month and a half for auto, and happening on the InstaSpect app, as we call it. And similarly, there are other things that. So I think as an organization, if you kind of anyway believed in digitization, you had to ramp it up. For anyone who hadn't, it must have been a big struggle.
Right. So we did one study and we found that health has all of a sudden become the new priority for most of the. It's going to come out in a book that BIMTech will publish in a couple of months' time. Now, the greatest challenge that I or anybody in the industry foresee is that this renewed awareness, how this renewed awareness can be sustained in days to come. It's a big opportunity area. People are looking at health insurance and other form of insurance, health insurance and life insurance in particular. This is an opportunity area. To build on this opportunity, how are you going to sustain this opportunity? Will it translate in more penetrations, more take for insurance product in days to come?
Again, our view is the answer is yes. As I said, event of this nature is not something that people forget in a short time. I think that I was talking to someone, a friend of mine, whose parents stay in a place in MP, a small town in MP, in Devas, and he was talking about how his local milk guy was explaining to him the importance of insurance. And the question that I asked him is that. Does that person think that insurance is like an ATM card? You pay a premium and you definitely take the money out. He said, no, he understands the concept that you don't get a claim every year. If you fall sick, you get the claim. That's music to our ears, right, in insurance. So I think there is a realization of importance of insurance. And I don't think it's going to go away. What we have to do as an industry is to really solve for true needs of customers. If our product is useful, people will buy it. And when I say true needs, as I keep saying, that insurance is not just about claim settlement. It is also really helping customers with their health needs, which means the continuum of care, which means wellness, preventive, advisory, and all of that. And if you can do all of that, and I'm sure the health insurance industry will move in that direction. my sense is that the demand will, of course, this year has been a spike. It may not sustain at this level next year, but I think there's a step change in the overall demand for health insurance in the long term. It's not a short term.
And that reminds me of what we normally say, customer engagement. And today people are talking in terms of digital customer engagement. Is that going to happen according to you?
So let me give you an example from our experience, right, from ICICI Lombard. So we had launched an app called ICICI Lombard Take Care. I'll take care. So that is a kind of an acronym. I'll take care. Where we provided all of those. So we provided an OPD policy. We did it for B2B customers, corporate customers, where you could do a telehealth consulting service. You could, after the telehealth consulting, the doctor would give you the prescription. The prescription, we are tied up with e-pharmacies. The drugs would be delivered at home. After that, if you wanted to go to a diagnostic center for tests, that was covered in the network. All of that completely paperless, digitized. And we had, advisors for, basically expert advice that was available. We had a kind of a concierge service. If you needed to go to a hospital, we gave you choices and some suggestions on what is good, what is bad. We had second opinion. All of these pieces were there. What in this period, when in the last 6 months, since we had launched it last year, the number of downloads very small. This 6 months, the downloads have grown roughly about 7 times in this period. The number of teleconsultants, consultations that people are doing is increasing month on month. So, it's not as if what will happen. I think some of this is already happening. May not be across the industry, but my sense is that companies that take the lead in doing this more will, we believe, benefit in the long term.
One question coming from a student, he wants to understand, how can the insurance industry revamp its operations by embracing blockchain technology in claim processing and reducing over-dependence on TPA?
So as a company, we have our own internal team. We don't use a third-party administrator. But I think the question is a very, very good question. It's not just from a TPA perspective, even for us. Blockchain technology could help us in terms of streamlining the process with hospitals and making it a better service experience for customers. I mean, what happens with customers today? When the day they want discharge, we get the bills from the hospital maybe an hour before the discharge time, and we process it and give it back, and then there's some to and fro, and the customer is waiting, and at times it takes a couple of hours for the customer to get discharged. It's not a pleasant experience. Now, if you can actually use blockchain, as the customer is being treated on a real-time basis, some of this information could flow to us. We could actually keep the files processed, and when the customer is discharged, it is a smooth process without any checking at that point in time. So there are a lot of possibilities that are there, but obviously it's you need 2 hands to clap. So as an industry and the hospitals, we have to come together and do some of these things to make it happen. Opportunity is definitely there.
Blockchain with the service provider, that's hospital, is understandable. But what about the blockchain across all the carriers, all the insurance providers? Fraud is one area which is doing all kind of business. So fraud elimination, the blockchain has a big role in fraud elimination.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, Professor. In fact, one of the things that we've done with some of the insurers in Bombay, at least, because we are all, some of us in Bombay kind of managed to get it together, is on the motor side. We are doing exactly that as a pilot. We've experimented with that, and it actually works well on prevention of fraud and prevention of, let's say, misdeclaration on claims experience in the last year. One of the things that we see is people don't declare the previous year's claim to get a no claim bonus.
Yes.
So those things can be eliminated. So those are things that we've experimented. It's not scaled up. Obviously, we can do a lot better as an industry on that.
Another question that I'm getting is, we are experiencing resurgence of virus in US and European countries. What is your outlook for the next 6 months? Is it going to impact risk profile and hence risk management of insurance industry?
any expert who's predicted anything to do with this virus has proved to be, a false expert, right? So I don't want to say that I know what is going to happen with this virus. I think what we've seen is, in terms of the claims data, we think the numbers seems to have peaked in September, and October seems to be roughly kind of flat to slightly lower. But we also worry about a second spike because of festive season that we are going through at this point in time. We've seen what happened in Kerala. The second spike happened post Onam. So that remains a risk for us. The only argument that some experts are given, I mean, I'm not a doctor or epidemiologist, so I can't comment on this, but what some of the doctors are saying is that I think the percentage of people who've already got in built immunity antibodies is much higher in India, so the risk is relatively low. But I don't think that's a safe bet to have. I think the risk of some amount of spike is there in maybe around December, January.
One question I'm getting from Bangladesh, and the gentleman asks, what would be the strategy for an insurance company to meet the demand of health insurance coverage for pandemic like COVID-19? We had initially an apprehension that COVID is not covered, pandemic is not covered. The regulator and the insurance industry came together to dispel that doubt. Maybe in Bangladesh, where you do not have indemnity-based health insurance policy, they have all benefit-based health insurance policy. Maybe this reservation or doubt comes from that.
Yeah.
Do you see that health insurance, this is the right time health insurance business to take off in a big way?
Absolutely, and it is taking off. So, just to comment on the gentleman's question, when the COVID event happened, none of us knew about it. None of us anticipated this, right? So we didn't price for this. But I think as an industry, I am happy that we took a very responsible stance that we will pay for those claims. Because if you get hospitalized for any reason on an indemnity policy, we should pay for it. And, initially there was some doubt because I think one or two companies had raised some doubts about it. We had clarified as ICICI Lombard right in the beginning that we would pay for those claims, and the regulator also said the same thing. So that was good. Because we've seen this in certain countries because people have said pandemic is not covered, so we will not pay for COVID claims. We believe that is not correct. It's come at a big cost for us as an industry, but so be it, and that's why we are here. So I don't know if in Bangladesh you have the same approach. I have not studied it, but if you've looked at the Indian industry, our popular product, which is, as Professor is talking about, the indemnity product, which really indemnifies the cost of hospitalization. Those policies are paying for COVID. Benefit policies are fixed benefit. They basically spell out the diseases for which there will be a payment. So those policies don't cover COVID, so they will not pay. But indemnity policies here in India are paying for COVID claims. Professor, I think you got muted.
Sorry, sir. This is a question coming from Mr. Saket Khetan, and he's asked this question. Data is the new fuel. What preparedness is Lombard adopting for the imminent passing of Data Protection Act? Being a lawyer, this is the question coming from him.
To answer tough questions, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is something that we have to gear up for. We've studied the Data Protection Act, and we obviously have to ensure that we are very transparent with our customers in terms of what data we take, how we store it, and how we use it. Our view is that it's a very kind of dichotomous world, right? At one level, people are very worried about data, personal data concerns, and equally they're very open to share data. I mean, you're seeing what happens in any social media today. So our take is, talking to customers is, if we are able to give back something meaningful, something valuable, using the data that the customers shares with us, I don't think, and we don't misuse that data, I think we are fine. And customers are quite happy to work with companies like that, and that's something that we have to get used to. So we have to think creatively about how do we use data in a meaningful manner for customers. That's what we have to gear up for.
Another question coming from Mr. Nilesh Sathe. As you all know, Mr. Sathe was member Life Insurance. He puts this question: has there been quantum jump in cyber insurance post-pandemic? Everybody is asking that question.
Hello, sir. Good to chat with you even on this platform. Sate is a man that I think in the industry we have a lot of respect for. So honestly, we've seen some growth. A few companies have launched retail cyber policies. That's picking up in terms of numbers. But as you know, the base is very, very small. And this is even these increased growth numbers are not going to move the overall industry, GWP much. But increasingly, and there's a lot of effort that at least some of us are taking in terms of education on cyber side. There is clearly, even when we are talking about SMEs, we are seeing some interest coming through in terms of cyber and crime policies. Corporates, of course, are much more aware. And increasingly, we are seeing some interest in the retail segment as we are launching retail products. So it's a small segment. It's growing, but it's our sense is that it's not yet reached a meaningful proportion, but the opportunity is large.
May I also convey my sincere gratitude to Mr. Nilesh Sate. He has been always very, very supportive to BIMTech and academics. May I ask Mr. Saket Khetan if he wants to add something on data protections? Mr. Bhargav Dasgupta in the beginning said if any of these eminent panelists want to add anything. Mr. Khetan, if you want to add something on that.
Thanks, Dr. Chattopadhyay. Bhargav, sorry to put you on a spot on that.
No, absolutely not.
Apologies. I think, there is the imminent passing of the Data Protection Act in India. And it is comparable and in some ways more draconian than the GDPR legislation we have in Europe.
Yes. Yeah.
To my mind, businesses in India would need to prepare very carefully to the manner in which data is managed. In particular, because the Act actually makes a senior leadership team accountable by making it a criminal offense for breach.
Yes.
Both from an industry perspective, which means cyber security, response time, as well as in terms of protection. All three needs to be ramped up. So the way I look at it is historically, as you mentioned, Bhargav, Indians don't consider data to be private. And therefore, there is a dichotomy in the Indian economy where everything is available and you have an act that is going to be passed, which is going to be making the disclosure of data or the hacking of data a criminal offense. So it's something that industry needs to grapple with and come to terms with. And as you mentioned, as far as Lombard is concerned, the protection of data and the real use of data becomes critical.
Yes, absolutely.
And those companies that do that will actually, distinguish themselves from others, and that's where success will come.
Yeah, you have to be responsible about it, and it's significantly more challenging because of the overall environment of cyber. We are all obviously conscious of that, but it is how you go about your intentions is what will be important.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining and giving your valuable insight on that particular matter. Coming back to question, Mr. Dasgupta, one question is coming from a veteran from Bangladesh, Mr. Qazi Muhammad Murtaza. Himself was a very well-known insurer of it at his time. His question is very simple. When insurers are paying more claims, less premium, how can they invest for advanced technology?
So the answer is they can't. So that's why we keep saying, and I'll just give you an Indian statistic for the whole industry, for this body. So if you look at the Indian industry's profit after tax from 2008 to 2020, right, 12 years, you would expect, normally I'll ask a question and ask for responses, which I can't hear, I guess. But if you would expect some growth, maybe, 5% compounded growth, 10% compounded growth, that India's grown a lot. What you'll be surprised to hear is that the industry is degrown by, if I remember the number correctly, about 12% compounded. As in, what we were earning as an industry in 2008 was 4 or 5 times more than what, in fact, today we are, as an industry, we are kind of loss making as an industry collective. So as an industry, if you look at in the year to 2020, the total profit after tax for the industry was a minus 1,400 crores. But if you look at top four companies in terms of profitability, the profits of the top four companies is close to 4,000 crores.
Right.
So that means that there are some companies which are losing a lot of money. Now, those companies are not able to invest in technology because that's the point that I made, that, if you think about running a business, you have to think of all stakeholders, including the shareholder. And you have to make money, because without that, you can't invest. And forget investment. I think the bigger damage that this does is that you become very irresponsible about even claims, because you're struggling to pay claims because your cash flows are being challenged. So making some reasonable profit is absolutely important for investment in distribution and technology, in penetration. One of the reasons why I believe penetration hasn't happened is because we've not invested in, as a category, as an insurance category, in terms of awareness creation, in terms of distribution into smaller towns. And that's largely because of very poor underwriting that we've had as a collective. Some of us have not been, we've been much more cautious on quite a few companies. And I think those are companies which are able to invest in technology.
So I take some questions from the budding youngsters who are going to become the leaders in days to come. So one of my students asks this question: how has the analytics enabled the leaders across the different industries and geographies to more effectively handle the challenges presented by these unprecedented times? What role analytics is likely to play in days to come?
Oh, it's absolutely vital. I mean, as I keep saying that, insurance is probably the original data sciences industry, right? Okay. Today, everyone talks about data and data science, but insurance was probably originally the first industry which used mathematical models and looked at data. We've kind of lost a bit of, our competitive advantage in that sense from those days. But I think that's the way to think about, building your business in future. So if you think about I'll just give you a couple of examples. So we talked about this, creating something meaningful for customers using customer data. As an industry, we've been very transactional at a product level. Today, on a digital platform, maybe an app-based platform, where customers are willing to give their health risk assessment, give their step count, give the wellness platform that they're operating on, or their the behavior that they have in terms of taking care of exercising, etc. You can use some of those data to potentially give them some certain benefits, be it in terms of extra covers or some freebies here and there, etc. And there are many companies globally which have done that. Coming to, let's say, I talked about AI and ML. Today we are able to do that. I mean, as I said, 60% of our health claims, we don't get a doctor to see the claim. It's done through a machine learning engine that we built about a couple of years back. That's because of data of the past. We've used the data to train the engine, and that's how the engine operates. Today, on a mobile phone, say there is a break-in in your auto insurance, and normally we will send a surveyor to check for damage. Today we have a solution where you just point your app at the damage, you take a few pictures, and the app, using AI, figures out whether there's a damage or not, and it tells you and passes off the insurance policy. So those are abilities that we've been able to build because of data. Fraud. I mean, we use our analytics team to build a ML-based fraud engine, which improves our previous, solution that we had by almost 10% points. So every part of our business, data is vital for creating the difference between you and the next guy who doesn't use data. And that's how you will, in a very highly competitive industry, that's how you'll stay ahead of the curve.
My next question is virtual health likely to be the next reality, or next frontier?
We can't call ourselves health experts, but if you study the sector from a distance with a certain perspective, you would argue yes. If you see some of the work that is happening in digital health, particularly in Silicon Valley, I think it will completely transform healthcare. Our view is that, in fact, if you see talk to some of the experts there, the view is that 10, 15 years from now, health will be completely personalized. It will not be, a standard process, and the demand for hospitalization will come down. And it will be completely, as I said, digitized and personalized and customized health based on maybe your genetics or your activities or your, the small, bots that will monitor, whichever way you want to call it. So our view is that it will be a digitized health model in the next 10, 15 years. Whether it will happen in that time, I don't know, but it will definitely happen in the future.
My reason is that country like Bhutan, Bangladesh, if you look at the health in this index, you will find Bangladesh and Bhutan has better life expectancy at birth, what we call LEV. And that has not happened in India. If Bhutan can do that and Bangladesh can do that, and they have been using digital health quite effectively. My specific question is, how will the health insurance industry respond to that growing demand for virtual health? That's one. And do you think things can also go the way you talked about Silicon Valley? Or I'm talking about never next door, Bhutan or Bangladesh. Is that likely to happen in India also in days to come?
So the problems for the two categories are different. And my response was more for the set of customers, the top 5-10% of the population who buys health insurance, goes to the top, corporate hospitals. And, I was responding for that segment. But even if you look at the strata which doesn't get proper healthcare, right? And our traditional approach as a country has been that you have to have, these primary health centers. A doctor after his MBBS has to go to a village and spend, 2 years of his or her time. And that's how you thought you will provide healthcare. That's not worked. And that is not going to work in future. But today you have the ability and the technology to provide healthcare at the doorsteps in remote India, again using digital health. You can actually look at some of the data, and so what you can do is have, let's say, an ASHA worker marginally trained using a tablet with an AI engine behind or a virtual doctor behind, which can provide the same level of service in a village. And using that, you can actually aggregate data much better. You can figure out that there is an epidemic that is bubbling up in some small part of the country, much earlier than in the current approach that we have. So there is a huge opportunity if we can actually leapfrog the thought process on health using the current technology that is available and becoming available as we speak to transform healthcare. And obviously, there's a huge need that we need to do, need that we have as a country in terms of doing that fast.
Right, sir. ASHA has been quite a revelation, and unfortunately in India, despite it being a great success story, we have not been able to exploit the kind of services they have been given, particularly in the village in Kerala. I have first-hand experience interacting with ASHA workers there. Yeah. So they have been doing well, and I have a feeling ASHA, if the ASHA experiment carried forward, can transform the face of Indian health insurance to a great extent. The kind of gadgets they are using, the kind of data you can gather.
Yes.
But will you like to take some more questions? If you
I can take a couple of more questions.
Thank you so much, sir.
Something at 7:30.
Right, sir. I have few questions coming. One question is, some brokers that lack IT infrastructure are now having more difficulty providing administrative services. How renewal information is now obtained, and how are using data assumptions to solve this? So some of this broking firm, the question, if I understand properly, is that they have administrative challenge because they do not have IT infrastructure in place. So one is to get the IT infrastructure, but even if they don't get it, how are they going to deal with it?
Look, I'll obviously have to understand the problem more clearly, but even any organization, be it a broking or an insurance company, as I keep saying, unless you build some of these capabilities, you run the risk of losing out in the marketplace. If your customer is not getting a service from you because you don't have the, let's say, digital capability, and the customer wants insurance, he or she will shift to some other distributor. And there will be other distributors who will invest in technology. So one of the things that we are happy to do as ICICI Lombard is actually happy to work with distributors in enabling them digitally and technologically so that they can actually continue to do their business. we see it as a win-win for our distributor and our agent. And that's what I mentioned. That's the kind of point that I kind of talked about when I talked about hybrid agency. And similarly, we've done for small brokers, using some of our technology platforms to allow them to use them to sell policies. But you have to agree to use technology. Without that, it will become a challenge.
Another question is that why is it that micro insurance or micro health insurance not taking up in India? We have a very robust regulation in place, and none of the neighboring countries have that kind of regulation in place. Despite the regulatory prodding, it has somehow not lived up to the expectation of common people. Like, micro health insurance is something that can do wonders, going to the people who really need healthcare more. As a rural people or the migrant laborers.
I think there are multiple issues. The regulator is now thinking of setting up separate kind of a regulatory architecture for micro insurance companies with less capital. I'm not sure that is going to solve the problem. I think the problem has to be understood at the root in terms of what does the customer need, and are we able to provide that in a manner which is commercially viable for everyone. And if you think about at the bottom of the pyramid, we've done enough research. I mean, we were probably the early companies in terms of some of these rural policies, social policies back in 2006, 7, 8, 9, till about 14, 15, we were very active. I think one of the clear learnings is that at that level, people have other worries. I mean, insurance is not the first thing that you buy. I mean, when you think of your allocation of your monthly budget, there will be certain things that will take priority over insurance at that point in time, at that level of income. And that's a reality that you have to accept. And hence, it is not as if someone who's at a level of subsistence or barely making do, I think the first thing that they will do when they earn a bit more will be to buy certain assets. It will not be to buy insurance. And hence, I think the way government is thinking about the Ayushman Bharat initiative is probably the way to go. We believe that's the right approach. That will address the bottom 40, 50% of the population. We have to, as an industry and policymakers, come together to figure out what happens to the next 40, because the top 10, 15% is covered through retail and corporate. But the middle 40 is what we have to solve for.
The middle 40 is the real challenge.
Yes.
How exactly health insurance travel to them?
Yes.
One last question that I'll ask, and it comes from a student, and he asked me this question: what, according to you, are the skills that a fresher need to acquire to have before entering the insurance industry? They are all 2-year insurance students. We have a retail program also. We have the PGDM 2-year PGDM course and international business. The 4 courses we run here. And believe it or not, we were the first to start insurance course, professional.
I know. And that's
before we started before the 9-year also.
Yeah. That's what is special about Vimtech, right? So that's why we keep looking up to Vimtech.
Thank you so much.
So, the one answer that I have for anyone in any industry is whichever industry you go in, first, really understand the industry. Understand whether what that industry does is appealing to you. At the end of the day, your value system has to align. Every industry has its own purpose. Our purpose is really to solve for the risk needs of customers. If you find that interesting, join the industry. If not, find the industry that you enjoy and get excited by and join that industry. Now, once you come in, then it is all about, if you enjoy what you're doing, you'll find ways to do well in that industry. And at least what we talk about in ICICI Lombard is attitude is more important than skills. Skills you can get, you can acquire. Attitude is something that you have to have. So come in with an open mind, with an approach to learn and grow within the industry, you'll do well. This is a techno-marketing industry, right? So we have to do marketing, of course, but it's a very technical subject, at times. So you have to have the interest to and the willingness to learn, and that's why I keep saying you have to have the right attitude. And if you do that, this is a very exciting place.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining. Would have loved to hear you for hours, but we will keep the time like 7:30. We wanted to end. And thank you so much. In fact, it was one of the most interesting sessions we had. We have the ex-member of Member Live, IIDA, Mr. Nilesh Sate, Mr. Arun Agrawal, Mr. Saket Ketan, Mr. K.K. Mishra, Mr. B.D. Banerjee, and all our senior colleagues from BIMTech joined this interesting discussion. Thank you so much. My turn is over. I request Saloni Sinha to take over from here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chattaraj. I think the questions were so relevant, and we have drawn a lot of sensibility. Thank you, Mr. Dasgupta, for addressing each of them in such detail. It's very encouraging. I thought it's not easy for me to sum up what you have said. So I was helped by Dr. Chattaraj. He's always mentoring me towards some new knowledge. So he shared a McKinsey report, which was released very recently, and it was on insurance resilience in a rapidly changing coronavirus world. On page number 3, there is a paragraph which says about resilience and return weathering the crisis. So for the benefit of all, I would like to refer to one paragraph from that because I thought it would add value. So it says, given the uncertainty about the duration of COVID-19 in individual markets, a clear priority is the development of contingencies for the possibility of extended impact, including the potential for second and third waves of the virus. Building these contingencies requires taking a hard look at the initiatives that will improve both the use of resources and field productivity. So I think the story of ICICI Lombard has really, taught us a lot. Your initiatives have guided many. So at this point of time, I think...
Lori, madam, I will interrupt. We have 3 books, one written by Professor K.K. Sinha Manthan. This is a book, sir, we'll love to present you.
Thank you.
It's a virtual world, sir. It's written by Professor K.K. Sinha. This is another book by Raghuram Rajan, the third pillar, sir. Dr. Chaturvedi, sir, I'll request you to honor Mr. Dasgupta with this book. It's not there with you, sir. Right, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. And the third book, I will ask Mr. Ketan, sir, to. This is a very famous book by Vivek Debroy and Anirban Ganguly. And so this is the third book, sir. Mr. Ketan, please do the honor on behalf of
Thank you so
BIMTech.
much for speaking to us, Bhargav. It was just very, very...
Thank you. So, my pleasure.
Saloni, Professor Saloni, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so this is another big message for all the aspirants here. Read if you want to succeed. And, therefore you have to just pick up anything and read. So thank you so much, professors, for this moment and strong message in itself. So at this point of time, I'm just reminded of a certain sentence I read. Any kind of crisis is good. It wakes you up. So I think we all are awakened today in ways so many. As an expression of gratitude, I would like to invite Professor Prateek Priyadarshi. He is an associate professor in the department here, in insurance department. He's also heading PGPX program. They're doing some great work over there. So I invite him to present the vote.
Thank you, Saloni ma'am. The biggest challenge for me right now is that my chairperson has stolen my thunder. And sir, Dr. Chaturvedi, sir, I would formally like to lodge a complaint. See, what happens is that after such an enlightening talk, such interesting discussions, people are not interested in listening to any other talk that comes up their way. But having said that, there are 2 things that I'm reminded of, sir. One is that, interestingly and coincidentally, this is the period wherein in the West we call it the Thanksgiving week or Thanksgiving Day, and Saket Ketan sir would agree that this is the time when families get together to say thanks to the nature and to the Almighty for the gifts that they have been bestowed upon. We in India talk about it in terms of Makar Sankranti and Pongal and things like this. But sir, the moot question is that why do we say thanks? The important thing is that we acknowledge the support, the help, and the gratitude that we show towards your help that has made this grant a success, sir. Honestly speaking, sir, if you were to take the total number of questions that were put across to you, it would need at least 6 more hours for the session to go on. And from that perspective, I'm grateful to the friends of BIMTech, to my alumni, and to people, particularly these industry stalwarts, sir. People like Mr. B.D. Banerjee, people like Mr. Arun Agarwal, K.K. Mishra ji, who was my boss in the public sector as also in the private sector, and I had made a promise to him that I would strive so that I live up to his expectations. Then, of course, I would like to show my gratitude and express thanks to people like Mr. Nilesh Sathe. You know, having a member of the regulatory board guiding us is an awesome experience for us. And sir, that would explain to you why we have someone like Vidisha in your organization, sir. We have always strived, and this was initiated way back in 2000 when Dr. Chaturvedi thought about starting the insurance business management, that we have reached a stage where we can truly say that the world is ours. I'd also like to express my gratitude to the entire IT team, in particular to Mr. Kapil Garg of BIMTech, who made this entire arrangement a flawless setup so that we could have such easy interactions. I'm grateful to the people who've come in from outside, particularly Bangladesh, the Middle East, and of course, Nepal. We had, I sincerely missed Mr. Sanjay Datta at the colloquium, and now that he's here, I would just like to let him go with a warning, you know, next time better be there, you know, buddy. I'll look forward to asking some difficult questions from you. But having said that, sir, I'm honestly speaking overwhelmed at the fact that you were able to spare almost 2 hours of your valuable time in having a discussion with the entire lot that we are here. Sir, I would be failing in my duty if I do not talk about the most important aspect of this entire system that we have right now, and that is that the wake-up call that you talked about, sir. I'm really thankful to you that such a simple message was communicated by you to the entire lot of people who were watching this, in particularly to the students and the alumni that we have. This is the career path that one should look forward to. Sir, on behalf of Director BIMTech, on behalf of BIMTech, and on my personal behalf, our gratitude, my thank you, and good wishes to you, sir. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. This is a
Thank
Lokhi
you.
Puja
Thank
day.
you, everyone.
Yes, Lokhi Puja day.
Lokhi Puja, and I'm so sorry to